Good morning. How are things going? Are you folks having fun? Enjoying those slates? I still see a lot of people trying, a whole bunch, trying things out. So it's great to have you here. My name is Samuel Devasahayam. I work in the Identity and Access team. Let's see. PPT. And we also have Neer out here who works on the file server team. And today we're really excited to talk about a new capability. We call it dynamic access control. That's focused on providing you better security controls, better flexibility to manage your policies towards the view to that you can do a better job for managing compliance as well as for information governance. Now, let's just what are we going to cover today? Our focus today is to ensure that you have a really good overview of dynamic access control. We expect most of the audience to be security architects, people managing data, DLP developers, people working with identity management is the focus of this talk. Now, what we're going to cover is dynamic access control is a fairly broad feature. It actually brings numerous teams in Windows together to provide this for customers. We're going to talk a lot about our investments in the platform for Windows 8. And we're going to then show a series of demos associated with making it real with respect to file servers. We use file server as a means in which we're using our own technology to drive a better solution for customers. We're also going to show you a quick peek into, for those of you who think about .NET and Azure, we're going to show you a quick peek into how some of these investments translate for you to building more secure applications in the cloud. At the end of it, we're hoping that you will have a better understanding of some of the core authentication, authorization, and audit capabilities that we've built into the platform for Windows. And we're going to move forward essentially to show you how that applies to data that's being managed in file servers, as well as for some .NET applications. So let's get started. All right? Why did we do this? When we really planned Windows, one of the key things customers had was that, hey, I have difficulty in managing my data. I really don't know where my data is. It's very distributed across. And compliance is driving me to build tighter controls and have an understanding of where my data lives, how my data is partitioned, as well as what are the access controls. And I'm also required to provide forensic audits to make sure that I have the right trail of information to understand, hey, if something happens, I need to have those reports to figure out who accessed at what time from what machine. Those are things that people were very concerned about. The cost of the solution to building this was also very high. So our focus in Windows 8 was to provide a better platform to build these types of solutions and make it easier to build applications that manage data with a view towards compliance and information governance. Now, when we really think about it, our scope is actually a broad set of personas, especially. Now, it ranges, even you as developers, it ranges where your customer is all the way from a CIO or a CSO who worries about compliance controls in his organization because he or she can go to jail, all the way to an information worker where they just don't care. They just want to do their job. And it makes it, right now, it's very hard for them because they don't understand. They're asked to do something and they don't understand certain things, and it leads to errors or and opening up information for inadvertent access. When we talk about dynamic access control, what the core areas that we really are focusing today on is about how to apply appropriate access policies. Thinking about auditing. How should I be auditing my information? Do I have the right level of information? For people who care about data leakage protection, how is my information encrypted? And finally, in terms of there are certain policies that require to apply retention to certain types of data. So how can you kind of manage that? These are things that we expect you to kind of care about. Now, today, people more and more, customers are looking for solutions where compliance is built into these solutions, where the cost of managing for them to drive to their audits is easier. And this is one of the key reasons that we're investing in Windows 8. So let's start with all our platform investments, because we have a wide range of capabilities that we built into the platform. We're going to focus on making sure that we provide the right overview across that whole set so that you have a good grounding before we talk about looking at the solution from the perspective of file servers or an application. We also have a series of sessions, which I'll show it right at the end. We have a session on auditing as well as on classification as well that follow this session. Now, when we think about investments in Windows 8, I just wanted to kind of give a quick preview. How did we think about it from the technology perspective? At Microsoft, we provided a new model called claims-based applications. It started with us releasing what is known as Windows Identity Foundation, which is a core .NET framework. And we released a product called ADFS 2.0, Active Directory Federation Services. This provided the core capability for you to kind of build these claims-aware applications and abstract away authentication and authorization, in a sense that it gave you an abstracted set of claims for you to work in an application. This was great because as application developers, you only care about working on your business logic. You don't want to think about the core authentication or core set of authorization. Now, what we did in Windows 8 is we took that model and we pushed it right into the core of Windows. We pushed claims into the core of Windows so that we can provide the right level of flexibility and granularity for application developers to build applications. Now, in addition, this is a very key concept that I want to kind of make sure that I get across. It's very hard in terms of applying policy. How do I apply policy? That's a key thing that's a challenge. What we focused in Windows 8 is to use classification or tagging as a key pivot in which we can granularly apply policy to data that you really care to apply policy to. This could be access control policies, or this could be audit policies. Finally, today there's a gap between information workers and content owners, and this makes it really hard with respect to me knowing what type of content it is, or me trying to make sure that I have the right set of access controls with this content. Our focus with Windows 8 is also to kind of reduce that gap and reduce the complexity involved in these two personas talking to each other. Now, when we get down into what does it really mean in Windows 8, there are 5 key areas that we've kind of made a lot of investments in Windows 8. We've taken this notion of claims and we pushed into the core authentication platform. This is Kerberos in Windows with Active Directory. You have a lot of data about users and machines already available in your Active Directory. What we've done is to take that piece of data and make it available to applications by pushing claims into Kerberos. Now, this is all great. Claims are great, all right? But it's not useful if we don't have authorization improvements to kind of consume them and make use of them. We made a significant amount of effort in the authorization platform to enhance it such that it understands claims, it understands expressions, and you can write richer access policies for your data. This is all great, but from a compliance perspective, people care about audits, and today audits are really hard. It's voluminous, it's not the information sometimes to kind of put reports together is very hard. We've made sure that we continue to invest in that area so that we're completing the AAA of identity and access, authentication, authorization, and auditing to ensure that it is claims aware and people can drive to build richer policies and that are more targeted. Now, this is all good, but there's a lot of folks kind of building .NET-based apps. Most of you probably might be, have already gone for an Azure talk. You're building .NET-based applications out there. So we also made sure that we invested such that we can project these types of investments towards .NET applications as well. Finally, there's a series in terms of managing data with respect to files. This is a huge area. It's one of the largest repositories. So we've ensured that across, we've invested quite a bit into our file management infrastructure so that it makes it easier to manage data, apply policies across the board. So what does this model really look like, right? So what we've done is we've taken user claims, which is from Active Directory, device claims, which is from Active Directory, and resource attributes, and we've bound them all together so that you can drive policies based on that. A quick example of this policy is, I've just kind of put a very quick example just to highlight what this looks like. This is, I have an access policy that says, hey, this policy only applies to resources that have been tagged with the type impact equals high, and allow read and write if, for that type of data, if a user in Active Directory has been tagged with a clearance level of high, and the device that he's accessing from is managed by my corporate IT. And I'm not sure if you truly kind of get that power of that expression out there. This is just a simple sample of what these expressions could be, and this is flexible enough for it to meet most of your business needs. Now we're going to walk through some of each of these investments that I kind of briefly talked about. So let's start with authentication. Today, most of you who are aware of how the Windows security model works, it issues let's say it's a ticket that Active Directory issues for you, right? Today, this only contains some basic user information. It contains what's known as a primary SID, and it contains your group information, your security groups that you're a member of, and that's pretty much it. What we've done with Windows 8 is that not only do you have this, we've now enabled it such that you can send out user claims as well as device claims and the groups as well as device groups, all in that entity ticket so that it can play a part in authorization downstream. That's a core concept. Now, a brand new concept that does not exist anywhere is this notion of what we call as compound ID. This is the notion that with a Windows client, if I'm accessing a resource, at the resource, I have one view of my user as well as one view of the device that I accessed in my access ticket. So it gives you that integrated view and helps you drive better authorization where you may want to dictate certain types of policies that are bound to saying that, hey, I only want to allow access from machines that are domain joined or machines that belong to my department because my data is extremely sensitive and I want to protect it. This is brand new, and this is one of the key things that customers have asked us for. Now, another key couple of areas that we've also continued to invest in the authentication area is that this notion of when you do smart card or certificate-based authentication, you have the ability to kind of have OIDs being represented in these certificates. All right? So, for example, a certain OID could imply that it's a smart card. What we've enhanced in Windows 8 is that we've taken those, we can convert those OIDs into claims that gives you some level of dynamic nature that is available from something like my smart card or a certificate that you might issue for a subset of your users. Finally, we've also, with all these claims infrastructure, we've also kind of added in support for a lot of you. I believe that 2/3, in terms of a recent survey, 2/3 of our Active Directory customers live in a multi-forest environment. So we've kind of built that infrastructure so that when resources and users differ in terms of which forest that they live in, we've provided you the plumbing so that you have the right level of access in terms of being able to filter or transform these values when it hops from one forest to another. Moving on, I really do want to make sure that I spend some time in this area because this is a very key part of dynamic access control. This is what that lights up a whole series of scenarios for us. This is around authorization. Today, you already have what's known as the ACL model. How many of you know what an ACL is? Right, great. Right? ACL contains a series of ACEs which have security descriptors, and what you can do is the way you allow access is you have an action, which could be allow, read, write, and then you have saying that what SID, security identifier, which could be a group or a user, that drives access. This is fairly limiting, so let me start covering what some of the key things, concepts that I want to kind of get across to you folks. That's lighting up a whole set of scenarios for us. Now, today there's no set of expressions in ACL. What is the problem with that? Because of this, when I have to, say, build intersecting sets, I am forced to create these new groups and manage these groups. It adds additional management complexity for these. And you see a huge explosion of groups within your organization or your enterprise. Now, in Windows 8, we've added this notion of full expression-based support. So you can do combinations such that user is a member of USA employees and is a member of the finance division and is a member of these authorization project. So it really focuses in making sure that you can kind of manage your logical sets in a more efficient manner, and this should lead to lesser number of groups that you would need to go manage, or it could become stale as well in your organization. You can do it in a more efficient fashion. Now, in Windows 7 and lower, this is a model that's been existing for nearly a decade right now, is that we only have the view to your ACLs can only be based on groups. What the enhancements for Windows 8 is that we've taken this notion of user claims from Active Directory, and we can represent them natively in these security descriptors in the ACL. So, for example, instead of it just being a group, you can say user.division or department, which are attributes in AD, and be able to use values from that or my cost center to be kind of drive my authorization decision. Now, in addition, as I mentioned briefly earlier, we never had the ability to kind of use any form of device state to drive your authorization at the core level in Windows. We've added support for these claims about machines, your computer accounts that are joined to your domain, and use them to drive authorization decisions here. This is a really powerful concept. Now, policy is great, but one of the problems is that in terms of having finer-grained access control, you never had the capability. It was you had to figure out your own partition scheme. What we've done is we've kind of, again, as I mentioned, tagging of data is a very key pivot in terms of how we're thinking about this. We've taken this notion of being able to use based on a resource type and say this policy only applies to data that has been marked as sensitive or data that's marked as PCI, data that's marked as PII. This because when you really think about compliance, these are some of the key things that your organization really cares about, your application really cares about, because it's managing data for these. So we've kind of ensured that we have this notion of if resource dot impact equals high, there's an applies to that says, and we can apply a specific policy to that. Finally, across these, these are all pretty much the same way you've kind of worked and are used to in dealing with ACLs. They're part of your SDDL strings, and you can use your same set of functions to kind of manage them. In addition, across, in terms of enhancements for authorization, we have a series of enhancements which cover all the way from some of our APIs to make sure that they are claims aware, as well as I wanted to talk about very quickly, one of the key things is we've also enhanced, organizations care about centralized controls, especially with respect to information governance and compliance. we've introduced this notion of central authorization policies that can be authored in Active Directory and targeted to the necessary servers using group policy. And this is a new capability available in Windows 8. Most of you have always seen this ACL UI if you've kind of ACLed any objects in the past with Windows. We've also providing a new ACL UI, you'll see that in the demos later, which is totally enhanced, which understands claims, and is also extensible for it to be called by our applications as well. Moving on to the core audit platform. So one of the key things that with auditing is, today the problem is that we do have audits. We've had audits for a while. That's great. But it is really voluminous. It's very hard to manage. The data, just trying to kind of the reams of audit that you have and trying to find the specific information that you truly care about is really hard. So our focus for this, for Windows 8, has been to ensure that we can use this whole claims infrastructure that we built in and use that expressions, those same type of expressions that I talked about, to actually drive our audits as well. So isn't it great if I can say, hey, I only want to audit my HPI data. I only want to audit my HPI data that has been accessed by my vendors in my organization. All right? That's the level of flexibility and capability that we've invested in the platform in Windows 8. Now, it's great, OK, we're kind of targeting those audits to make sure that it's much more of an efficient system for you to do that. But we've also made sure that we've enhanced the information in your audits so that you can build the right level of reports. Compliance requires these types of reports to be built. So we've kind of ensured that we've schematized some of these and thought about ensuring that, thinking through how can you correlate across various audit events to make sure that your level of scenarios is being covered. You will see more of these in the auditing session that follows this session, as well as in some of our demos as well. Now, another key concept that I want to get across from our auditing perspective is that we have a notion of staging. All right? Why did we think about this? Today, when you want to change policies associated with data, there's always a fear factor. You're kind of worried. What is the impact on my operations? And our focus is to kind of use our auditing infrastructure to be able to say, hey, here's a proposed policy for your change. And these will generate audits that says that if the access for an end user was different from what the current policy was, it will generate an audit which can be collected and provided, and you can provide reporting on this. This is kind of really great because you can turn this on without having impact your operations. Let's say you wait for a month and you look at it and say, hey, this really makes sense for my organization or for my application. So let me make sure I do that prior to making a change to my policy. So these are a whole bunch of series of auditing enhancements that we've made. And this is a huge partner opportunity as well. And we've been working with a few partners. And a lot of you might be even building custom applications within your organizations or building your own set of ISV applications. So now, moving forward, these claims, we've already had this Windows Identity Foundation and ADFS 2.0. So I'm going to take a short a trip to essentially talk about some of our enhancements in this area as well. So as part of Windows Identity Foundation, this was a out-of-box Windows component when we released it initially in November of 2009. And with Windows 8, this is fully part and parcel of .NET. All right? Every identity and principle in .NET is claims aware now. So that has been integrated into the core of .NET. And there's a set of changes associated with us refactoring. So for those of you already aware of Windows Identity Foundation, we've had to change some of the namespaces. We have to change some of the assemblies as part of kind of integrating into the core of .NET. That's something that we will provide more guidance as we move forward. Now, some of the drop that we have in the developer preview, these changes are not final. These are things that we're kind of still evolving, especially around we introduced an HTTP handler type of model, and we're moving away from that, and we're sticking to HTTP modules to actually manage these. Now, with ADFS is that we call it ADFS 2.1. This is an extension to 2.0. And now it is part and parcel and is shipped in box with Windows 8. This is something that we pushed in. Your existing, for those of you who are aware of, we already had what we call a 1.x code base in Windows. We've kind of moved away from that and pushed the 2.x code base into Windows. As one of the key things that we've also made sure is with Windows IND Foundation and ADFS, we can now use this concept of device claims that I just talked to you about, and we can project these to .NET apps. And I'm going to show you a quick demo associated with this. Login. Okay, so what I am going to show you, actually, before I do that, so I'm going to show you how I'm going to authorize a .NET application with device claims. Why do I want to do this? Let's say I do have some sensitive data, and I want to kind of ensure that this data is only from my corporate domain joined machine, or I want to say it is only from machines managed by my finance department, because I actually manage my yearly reports, and I want to ensure that I have stricter controls associated with that. So to kind of showcase this, we're going to just take an Azure application. Well, we're going to take an Azure web role and show you the most simple application. We're going to hook it up to Windows 8 server with ADFS running and with domain controller. And we're going to show Abby out here, who is now going to access it from 2 different machines. Both are domain joined. We're going to show her accessing it from client1.contoso.com, which is now managed by the operations team. And we're also going to show Abby accessing this from client2.contoso.com, which is managed by the finance team. So let me jump into the demo now. Now, what you see out here is a simple Azure application. It's a web role. I just created an ASP.NET application that's out there. And all I did was kind of added a simple claims control, which just shows you what set of claims that the application got back from ADFS, as well as an authorize me, my fancy authorize me button with some message text to kind of highlight this. All right. Now, before I jump in there, I want to kind of show you what our DC looks like. I've got client 1 that currently, I'm right now in Active Directory Administrative Console. So this is client1.contoso.com, which is managed by the operations team. And I've got client2.contoso.com, which is managed by the finance team. So let's hop into client 1. All right? I've got this Azure demo app, and it's going to start connecting. So the way it works in Federation is that I'm actually connecting from my client in my corporate network to an application that is running up in the cloud in Azure. It trusts my Federation service that lives on-premise, which is bound to my Active Directory. And it redirects me all the way to my Federation service, and where my Federation service says, hey, this is for my cloud application, so I have a set of claims that I'm going to issue. This could be user claims as well as device claims. So we've already out there. And note the fact that because I'm joined from my corporate network and I'm already on a domain joined machine and connected, this all looks so seamless for you. This is what we call single sign-on. I can use my Windows credentials to actually bind to these applications that live and have a seamless access to that application. This application lives, it's not trusted in AD, it lives in Azure out there. So let's take a look at our claims control. As you can see, the first two claims, we actually sent the DNS host name of the machine that I joined. This was all enabled by this notion of device claims and compound ID that I talked to you about. We've been able to kind of project